Ursula and Sabina Eriksson were born in Sweden in 1967. Prior to the horrific events that unfolded for the twins in 2008, they had no history of mental illness or criminal behavior. As adults, Ursula was living in the US while Sabina was living in Ireland with her partner and 2 children. Ursula visited her sister in Ireland May 16, 2008, but for reasons that still remain unclear, the 2 twins secretly departed that evening and took a ferry to Liverpool, England. Upon arrival on May 17th, the 2 twins went directly to St. Anne's Police Department in Liverpool to report concerns over the safety of Sabina's children. When the police called Dublin, they were told there had been a domestic dispute the night previous. The twins then boarded a bus and headed to London. The bus driver and several passengers during this ride noticed the twins' erratic behavior, said they were clutching their bags tightly, and the bus driver was concerned that there may have been some illegal substances being used. Officers arrived and talked to the twins, but after assessing the situation, they felt the twins were harmless and not on a substance. The twins then departed the station on foot and headed down the central aisle on the M6 freeway. At some point, the twins attempted to cross the freeway, at which point Sabina was struck by a car. The police arrived shortly thereafter and were accompanied by a television crew who happened to be filming a TV show at the time called Motorway Cops. Due to this accompaniment, cameras captured the horrific events that took place. As police were trying to make sense of the situation, Ursula suddenly broke free and ran into a big rig that was traveling 57 miles per hour. She was pulled under the wheels and run over, crushing both of her legs. Seconds later, Sabina darted out in front of oncoming traffic and was hit head-on by a car going 60 miles an hour. Incredibly, both twins survived, and while Ursula's legs were crushed and she couldn't move, Sabina was knocked unconscious for 15 minutes. Paramedics came to assist, but Ursula resisted treatment by spitting, scratching, and cursing. She was recorded saying to a policeman, "I recognize you, I know you're not real." When Sabina gained consciousness, she was recorded screaming, "They're going to steal your organs." Sabina then got to her feet and started screaming for help and for the police, and at some point she struck a police officer. She once again ran into the road but was restrained. Given the similarities in their behavior, many people wondered if there was drug use involved or perhaps a suicide pact. The twins were then taken to the hospital, and Sabina quickly became calmer and more controlled and was released to police within 5 hours. Ursula, on the other hand, had several injuries to her legs and remained in the hospital for 4 months. Both twins were tested and neither came back positive for any substance use. While in police custody, Sabina remained calm and relaxed and stated, "We have a saying in Sweden that an accident rarely happens alone. It usually is followed by 1, perhaps 2. And boy, did it get worse. On Monday, May 19, 2008, Sabina Eriksson was released from police custody without a full psych evaluation. She pled guilty for trespassing on the motorway and for hitting a police officer. Sabina then began to walk the streets, trying to locate her sister in the hospital. At around 7 p.m. that evening, 2 local men, Glenn Hollinstead and Peter Malloy, ran into Sabina while walking a dog. Sabina was apparently friendly and pet the dog, and the 3 struck up a conversation. According to Malloy, Sabina was acting nervously and asked the 2 men if they knew of any bed and breakfasts nearby. Hollinstead apparently took pity upon Sabina and offered to take her back to his house. Sabina then allegedly relaxed and agreed and followed the 2 men back to Hollinstead's house, stating that she was trying to locate her sister at the hospital. Sabina's odd behavior, however, reportedly continued. She would get up periodically and stare out the window as if she were paranoid. She would offer the men cigarettes and then quickly snatch them out of their mouths, stating that they might be poisoned. Shortly before midnight, Malloy left the house and Sabina stayed the night. The following day, Hollinstead tried helping Sabina locate her sister by calling local hospitals. By 7 p.m., however, things took a dark turn. While making dinner, Sabina grabbed a kitchen knife and violently began stabbing Hollinstead. Hollinstead then stumbled out of the house and told a neighbor, "She stabbed me." He died quickly thereafter. Sabina then fled the house with a hammer in her hand and periodically began hitting herself over the head with it. A passing motorist allegedly saw the behavior and then decided to tackle Sabina in order to stop her from hurting herself. The 2 struggled, and Sabina then took a roof tile that was in her pocket and smashed the motorist over the back of the head with it. A man from paramedics who had just arrived at the scene and ended up jumping off a 12-meter high bridge onto the freeway below. She broke both of her ankles and fractured her skull and was immediately taken to a hospital. Sabina was discharged from the hospital September 11th and then quickly taken into police custody, where she was charged with the murder of Glenn Hollinstead. She pled guilty to manslaughter and never once explained her violent actions. She only responded over and over again, no comment. She was sentenced to 5 years but spent less than a year in prison. No evidence of a suicide pact or drugs were ever discovered with the twins. While there's no way of knowing what really went on with these two twins, the defense attorney for Sabina argued that it was folie-à-deux or shared psychotic disorder that was at play. It was suggested that Ursula was the primary partner and Sabina was a secondary partner. But what do you guys think? Feel free to leave a comment.